Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Kris. This is Wizard Way, and this is Silmarillion Saturday, where I read and review the Silmarillion so that you don't have to. Welcome back, everybody. So today, apologies for missing last week. It was following my partner's birthday, and March is difficult because of that. So I took a weekend off, and now I'm back. So today we're going to be reading a bit from the Silmarillion. Just for legal purposes, I now need to say that this is intended in fair use, and by adding so much commentary and interjections, I am changing things significantly enough for it to count as fair use. Because the rights to the Silmarillion belong to the Tolkien estate. I'm not pretending they don't. Now that that's said, let's get in it. Hey there, Kinney. Welcome. So today's chapter is chapter 21 of the Quenta Silmarillion. We're going to be covering Turin Turambar. This is part 1 because I guarantee you we're not going to make it all the way through the chapter. It is a long chapter with lots of illustrations though. So if you're over on my TikTok channel, please head to my YouTube channel. You'll be able to see the illustrations from my overhead cam, and as I read, I will be attempting to apply voice effects where necessary. My Govanen! Welcome! What is that? Tiraniel Elronsel. See, you're throwing a really long username at me pretty early. I just woke up, okay? Go easy on me. Oh, that just... Of course, now I'm realizing I don't have any water in front of me, so I'm gonna put up the BRB and go grab some water, because there's no way I'm gonna get through this stream without any fluids. So, hey Annie, yes, I will be literally right back. I'm just gonna grab water really quickly. Hang with me. There we go. Water acquired. Water acquired. Now we can get started. So, again, as I said, we are covering chapter 21 today, or at least in part, and that is of Turin Turambar. So, this is one of the major stories in the Silmarillion. It's kind of sweeping. It does cover a fair span of time in the first age, but we will be at least starting the story, because Turin goes through a lot. Turin goes through a lot. So we'll read a bit about Turin Turambar. We are going to meet one of my favorite minor characters, whose name is Gwindor. Gwindor has a very, very tragic story. So you'll see. It comes up. We did see a little bit about Gwindor in the last chapter that we covered, in chapter 20, which is about the 5th battle, or the Nirnaeth Arnodiad. Gwindor stormed the keep. He stormed the gates of Angband because they very cruelly slain? They had very cruelly slain his brother in front of the forces of Valerian. So he got angry, as you do, and he stormed the gates. He got all the way inside Angband. All of his company were slain except for him, and he was taken captive. So that will come into play in this storyline. Oh, interesting. Thanks, Tyson. So, news. Amazon just bought MGM, so they now have rights to the Hobbit material. Wow. Like, is anyone else just, like, low-key frightened by the whole, power of the oligarchs? Like, Bezos really wants those rights, Like, and I'm kind of intimidated by that. I really hope the TV show the Rings of Power TV show is good. Because otherwise we're like, yay, now he has the rights to The Hobbit too! It does mean that they can include elements from The Hobbit in the TV series. The problem is, what you really want rights to is the Silmarillion. And they will not get the rights to that. Like, I don't know that we will ever see in our lifetimes the Tolkien estate giving up the rights to the Silmarillion. I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening. Now, would you be able to make a kick-ass show if you had the rights to the Silm? Yes, you could. Theoretically. Theoretically. But would anyone actually manage it? I have no idea. It truly does. It takes a village, right? Hey, Turbo. I'm so glad you're wearing the hoodie. Thanks. You're the one who got the Feanor No, right? You got Feanor No, I believe. I do have a design on my website. Shameless self-promotion. elfboy.com, elf-boi.com. That is my website. I have a whole merch section, stuff in Elvish that technically I shouldn't be selling, and but plenty of other designs like this one. Like, Sauron is bisexual, because he is. I insist. I also have my LGBTQ metaphor, the What Light Do You Dream Under merch is over there, so like there's a lot of good stuff, but one of them that I have is Feanor No. Feanor No! Which is basically the byline of the entire Silmarillion. It's just, everything is Feanor's fault. It's all Feanor's fault. And Owle's, but that's a TikTok video that I will be posting soon. I have headcanon about Owle being the cause of, like, the entire freaking thing. Bit off topic, did I see the Hogwarts game trailer? I have not, which is so surprising because I was a Wizards Unite YouTuber. I was a WooTuber. And literally all of my friends who were also WooTubers were live when that announcement and the trailer hit and everything. They were all live, so I got like a gazillion notifications, but I was in a really bad mental place when that was happening, so I haven't looked at it yet. But I do need to check it out. Out of sheer curiosity, I probably won't be playing the game, but it's one of those things. It's like, I do not like JK, and I don't enjoy JK, and as the author does influence the work for me. It's hard for me to separate the art from the artist. So in this case, because my community is the one that she's crapping on. So being a non-binary trans person, not too thrilled with JK, and that sort of spoiled my enjoyment of the Harry Potter universe, as problematic as that universe is, all on its own. So yeah, I have that conflicted feeling of, should I even support the game at all? Because ultimately we helping her get paid, and I don't like that. But at the same time, there are a lot of amazing content developers, right? It wasn't just JK who made the game. There are a lot of other people that I wouldn't mind supporting. So it's a difficult thing for me. I'm trying though. You're hoping that that Bezos pulls a Peter Jackson and he's killed on screen, so he does a cameo and gets killed on screen. I mean, that would be satisfying to a lot of people for different reasons. You have a whole podcast episode about Aule being the cause. Oh, really? It's not just me then. That's awesome. The Michael Scott of elves, yeah. Gosh, Feanor. Feanor, no! No! He never listens. But we should get started because this is a very long chapter, okay? Like, let's get going on it. Alright. I'm just making sure I've got my voice stuff ready. I did also get a new mixer, so I'm gonna be messing with my audio pretty soon. My ASMR streams are about to, like, really jump up in quality. I purchased a binaural mic. My very first binaural mic. For people who don't know what that is, a binaural microphone is a microphone that has ears on it. So it funnels the sound through, the microphone funnels the sound through those silicone ears, and it reproduces what we hear. So by moving around the mic, you get a 3D sound effect, like you're actually there. So a binaural mic, it's, two ears. It's two microphones panned to the left and right, so that when you listen to what is happening with headphones on, it sounds very immersive. It sounds like you're there. So very much looking forward to playing with my new microphone when it arrives. The first step was getting my mixer. That was a birthday present from my mom. Thanks, Mom. She was just like, what was that thing on your wish list that was slightly more expensive than typical? And I was like, this? I'm like, the mixer? She's like, buy it, I'll reimburse. And I'm like, so, my birthday is March 27th, so it technically hasn't happened yet. And that's why I have this, actually. So, if you're over on my YouTube channel, I have a link now. I need to add it into my link tree over on TikTok. I'll make sure that I do that. But it is thronegifts.com/u/wizardwaychris. That is my gift list. This is an anonymous gift list. So, not anonymous in the fact that you can let me know, like, that it was you who purchased something, but you never see my personal information. So it keeps me as a creator very safe, because you guys don't get access to my mailing address. But it allows you to buy something small for me. So I have, the link is up here now on my stream. And, yeah. So if anyone wants to buy me something small, like, it can be, an ASMR toy that's like $5. Or it can be, something for my Tolkien pin collection. I have a couple books that are on there. Everything is organized in different categories, so if you follow that link, it should bring you to the website, and it has everything organized. So if you want to buy me nail polishes for my Starscape pendants, you can specifically do that. Or you can look at the stuff for the Valinor house, if you want to help me decorate my house, like the locations in the Silm. You can do that. So I have added a lot of small things that people can feel free to purchase for my birthday if you want to. There's zero pressure, guys. But I appreciate it. Have I ever read Series of Unfortunate Events? I have not. Despite me being a huge Tolkien geek, I am not well read. I am really not well read. I didn't read Harry Potter until the final book was coming out, and then I read all of them all the way through, and I only read them once. This is technically only my second read-through of the Silm. From beginning to end. I reference it all the time, but I haven't actually sat down and read the entire thing since the first time I sat down and read the entire thing, and that was like, I want to say 15, 20 years ago? 20 years ago? It was about 20 years ago. Because that's when the movies were coming out and when I first, like, dove in. Hey, thank you so much. Yeah, it's Sandra's birthday month too, which is why I don't tend to do a lot of, like, overt celebration. But my sibling and their wife is going to take me out. They are going to take me out to the circus today to celebrate my birthday, so I'm excited. Oh, you listen to it over and over? That's not a bad thing. Hello, fandom fan. Hello. I'm like, wait, I have a sound effect for that.
Hey.
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 Hey. Hey. Hey. Hey. Hey. Hey. Of course, that should then segue into me singing. Ooh, a do, a do, a do, a do. Hey, hey. That was like really. That was like
Tiny head voice.
No. Just because this is a reading stream and I need to get started, but like catch me when I'm doing a not reading stream, okay? Because then I'm much more open to simulcasting with another person, but not this time. Thank you though. I appreciate that, but not this time. All right, let's get started, right? Or else just this is never going to happen. Okay, so last time we were here, we had just had the 5th battle, the Nirnaeth Arnoediad, or the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, which it's a series of battles, honestly, but Morgoth wins. Morgoth wins hardcore. Huge amount of elves are slain. Gwindor gets captured. We did talk about that briefly. And at the end of this chapter, we see that Morgoth is searching for Turgon. He's searching for Turgon because he wants to know where Gondolin is. Like, the hidden city is still hidden, but he's like, I want to find this place and destroy it. Because now that Fingon, the eldest son of Fingolfin, who, both of them were High King, now that Fingon has been slain in the Nirnaeth Arnoediad, Turgon is the second eldest son of Fingolfin, and so he is now technically High King of the Noldor. Which just makes Morgoth even more desperate to find him and kill him. But Gondolin remains a hidden city. He hasn't found it yet. Operative word, yet. We'll get to the fall of Gondolin later. Spoiler alert. This is not Lord of the Rings, this is about the Silmarillion. We are reading the Silm and discussing what is happening. So, and hopefully trying to connect it to anything that might happen within the Rings of Power TV show. So, it's what I call a read and review. Alright, so we did cover the 5th battle, and then Morgoth was having a field day with Hurin, which is Turin's father, mortal man Hurin. He was faithful to the elves, and he gets captured by Morgoth during the Nirnaeth Arnoediad as well. So he gets captured during the 5th battle, and Morgoth hates this guy, and so what he does is he chains Hurin to one of the peaks of Thangorodrim, Thangorodrim being the Iron Mountains, the mountains that are part of Angband, his main stronghold in the north. Think of it like the Wall, okay? Note, I've been watching Game of Thrones for the first time. It's a TV show I never thought I'd ever watch because it's not really my cup of tea, oddly, but I finally started watching it. I'm like almost to the end of season 7. It's been one of those binging things that I've done the last week. I'm not overly impressed by Game of Thrones. Controversial opinion. I'm not overly impressed by it. And there are boobs everywhere. Like, I'm ace, so it doesn't really do anything for me. And because it doesn't do anything for me, I'm just kind of like, this seems excessive. What house am I in? I have no idea. I haven't done any quizzes or anything. I have characters that I like. I can at least say that. I have a couple characters that I'm like, when they die, I'm gonna be sad. Like, I don't give me any spoilers because I haven't finished the entire thing. I know Daenerys is gonna go batshit at some point because the whole fandom got really angry about the way the TV show ended things. If George R.R. Martin had actually written the ending to the story, this wouldn't be a problem. And yes, I am going to dig at him a bit. He's an a-hole. Of course I've read The Hobbit. Yes, I have. Have I read The Hobbit? Yes. I'm not saying that's a stupid question. It's just, it should be obvious at this point. I'm such a big Tolkien fan, I've definitely read The Hobbit. Which characters do I like? I like Arya Stark, because she's just kind of badass. I liked her from the get-go, and I was like, she's going places. And then she went places. So, been satisfied with her arc thus far. Tyrion Lannister... I mean... What's the actor's name? Oh, cat butt. Hi, guys. Hi, Gray. Everyone say hi to my cat. This is Gray. There he goes again. Good boy, Gray. I know you want to be close today. You're a good boy. But, what was I saying? Tyrion Lannister, also enjoying the twists and turns for him. A lot of the plot things that have been happening, like, over the first 6.5 seasons that I've watched, haven't really surprised me. Like, there have not been very many where I've been like, ooh, wasn't expecting that to happen. Most of it I saw coming, and maybe that's just because I'm super cynical, and maybe because I knew going in that, like, with the way that George R.R. Martin writes fantasy, and the way he writes political intrigue, and the brutality of his world, like, I just sort of went in expecting everybody to die. And so when you have that expectation, things don't tend to shock you as much. I don't know. I'm conflicted. Okay, back to the book. We need to start reading, guys. I'm like a half an hour in. We haven't touched it yet. So, Hurin gets chained to the top of Thangorodrim by Morgoth, and he is forced to basically watch the events that unfold. So this leads into the story of Hurin's son, Turin. Turin, son of Hurin. So that leads us into chapter 21, and that's what we're going to start today. Peter Dinklage, thank you. Yeah, love that actor. Fantastic actor. Like, his performance is really, really good in Game of Thrones. And I haven't seen him in too many other things. I know he's in a recent movie. And I would like to go see that movie. But yeah, fantastic actor. Love him. It's like, read please? Yes, I will. I dislike the obvious characters. Not very many of the characters are likable, so... I like Arya, I like Tyrion, and, I don't know, Daenerys is problematic. I'm kind of enjoying her, but she kind of annoys me too, so I'm on the fence with Daenerys, but... yeah. I can't think of any other character names off the top of my head. I'm terrible with that. So let's get into the reading instead. So forget about George R.R. Martin. We're here for J.R.R. Tolkien. The author, whose name shall not be named soon because of copyright reasons. It's trademarked, that's the problem. So, Quenta Silmarillion, J.R.R. Tolkien, Chapter 21 of Turin Turambar. Rhiann, daughter of Belegund, was the wife of Huor, son of Galdor, and she was wedded to him 2 months before he went to Hurin, his brother, to the went with Hurin, his brother, to the Nirnaeth Arnodiad. And I know that's a lot of names we just spewed out at you. The important thing to take from that is that Huor and Hurin are brothers. Okay? Huor and Hurin are brothers. And Rhiann is the wife of Huor. Okay? So they went, these brothers went to the Nirnaeth Arnodiad. They went to the 5th battle. When no tidings came of her lord, she fled into the wild, but she was aided by the Grey Elves of Mithrim, and when her son Tuor was born, they fostered him. Then Rhiann departed from Hithlum, and going to the Howth and Ndengin, she laid herself down upon it and died. So, because she didn't know what happened to her husband, she laid herself down and which is, it's a thing that Tolkien does that I'm kind of like, really though? Really? So that's one half of this family. Rhiann is married to Huor. Their son is Tuor. You'll see this H to T thing happening with the names. Huor's brother is Hurin. He's the one who was chained to that throne at the top of the mountain. And his son is Turin. His wife is Morwen. So we're going to start talking about Morwen now. A lot of names get dropped in the Silm. I'm sorry, guys. I know, Turin's story is super sad. And we're just getting started. Literally paragraph 1, okay? Morwen, daughter of Baragund, was the wife of Hurin, lord of Dor-Lomin, and their son was Turin, who was born in the year that Beren Erchamion came upon Luthien in the forest of Neldoreth. That's referencing back to the story of Beren and Luthien, which we covered a couple chapters ago. A daughter they had also, who was named Lalaith, which is laughter, and that is what Lalaith means in Sindarin, laughter. And she was beloved by Turin, her brother. But when she was 3 years old, there came a pestilence to Hithlum, born on an evil wind out of Angband, and she died. Now after the Nirnaeth Arnodiad, Morwen abode still in Dor-Lomin, for Turin was but 8 years old, and she was again with child. Those days were evil, for the Easterlings that came into Hithlum despised the remnant of the people of Hador. And they oppressed them, and took their lands and their goods, and enslaved their children. But so great was the beauty and majesty of the Lady of Dor-Lomin that the Easterlings were afraid, and dared not to lay hands upon her or her household. And they whispered amongst themselves, saying that she was perilous, and a witch, skilled in magic and in league with the elves. Yet she was now poor and without aid, save that she was succored secretly by a kinswoman of Hurin named Eirin, whom Broda, an Easterling, had taken as his wife. And Morwen feared greatly that Turin would be taken from her and enslaved. Therefore it came into her heart to send him away in secret, and to beg King Thingol to harbor him, for Beren, son of Barahir, was her father's kinsman, and he had been, moreover, a friend of Hurin ere evil befell. And I know there are tons of names. I apologize in advance. Yes. Cover of the book, sure. This is the Ted Nasmith Illustrated Deluxe Edition, published in 2021. is a very nice book. The basic idea to take away from this whole thing is, while Morwen was considered to be in league with the elves, and she intimidated the Easterlings, who were like, oh, she's a witch! She's a witch! Burn her! They didn't dare. They didn't dare burn her. So she, thinking that her son was going to be enslaved by the Easterlings, which was a distinct possibility, she sends him south into Doriath to be fostered by King Thingol, hoping that her kinship to Beren, who has at this point wed Luthien, Thingol's daughter, hoping that her kinship with Beren will sway King Thingol into letting her child be fostered. Thingol doesn't tend to do that very much. He doesn't tend to let anybody into the girdle of Melian. But this is what Morwen's hoping to do. Therefore, in the autumn of the Year of Lamentation, Morwen sent Turin forth over the mountains with 2 aged servants, bidding them find entry, if they could, into the kingdom of Doriath. Thus was the fate of Turin woven, which is full told in that lay that is called Narn I Hin Húrin, the tale of the children of Húrin, and it is the longest of all the lays that speak of those days. It's a fantastic poem too, by the way. Okay, where was I? There it is. Here that tale is told in brief, for it is woven with the fate of the Silmarils and of the elves, and it is called the Tale of Grief, for it is sorrowful, and in it are revealed most evil works of Morgoth Bauglir. I'm stumbling over my Elvish today. Morgoth Bauglir. He the bad guy. He's the bad guy. Duh. In the first beginning of the year, Morwen gave birth to her child, the daughter of Húrin, and she named her Nienor, which is mourning. But Turin and his companions, passing through great perils, came at last to the borders of Doriath, and there they were found by Beleg Strongbow, chief of the Marchwardens of King Thingol, who led them to Menogroth. Menogroth is the main city of Doriath. It is the land of 1,000 caves. That's what Menogroth means. 1,000 caves. It's an underground dwelling. And actually, when we see the vast network of underground tunnels that King Thranduil has in Greenwood in The Hobbit, they were modeled after Menogroth, because Thranduil was born in Doriath. See how it's all connected? Isn't that cool? I freaking love these books. So that's one way that that we do see a connection between The Hobbit and the Silmarillion. Thranduil, or the Elven King, as he's referred to in The Hobbit, was born in Doriath, so we're talking about his homeland. But Menogroth is the main dwelling in Doriath, and the name actually means 1,000 caves in Sindarin. Okay. There we go. So they were found by Beleg Strongbow, chief of the Marchwardens of King Thingol, who led them into Menogroth. Then Thingol received Turin, and took him even to his own fostering, in honor of Húrin the Steadfast, for Thingol's mood was changed toward the houses of the elf friends, the 3 houses of mortal men that were honorable and trustworthy. Thereafter messengers went north to Hithlum, bidding Morwen leave Dor-lomin and return with them to Doriath, but still she would not leave the house in which she had dwelt with Húrin. And when the elves departed, she sent with them the Dragon Helm of Dor-lomin, greatest of the heirlooms of the house of Hador. Dragon Helm was constructed by the dwarves. Telkar, I believe? Telkar. amazing dwarven smith. I'll say, knew better, do better knows all about Telkai. Tell him about Telkai. So this, the Dragon Helm, which is it's a helmet. It's a very, very swanky helmet. Was sent down with the elves as an heirloom for Turin. Turin grew fair and strong in Doriath, but he was marked with sorrow. For 9 years he dwelt in Thingol's halls, and during that time his grief grew less. For messengers went at times to Heathlum, and returning they brought better tidings of Morwen and Nienor. But there came a day when the messengers did not return out of the north, and Thingol would send no more. Then Turin was filled with fear for his mother and his sister, and in grimness of heart he went before the king and asked for mail and sword. And he put on the Dragon Helm of Dorlomin and went out to battle on the marches of Doriath, and became the companion in arms of Beleg Cuthalion. I thought I saw something flash up on my screen there. Hold on. Yeah, sorry guys, I've been having a bit of an issue with my chat lately. Trying to fix it. How much was he for the hour? Rude. So Thranduil learned his douchiness from Thingol. That's kind of a fair statement, not gonna lie. That's kind of fair. That's fair. That's fair. So as Turin has grown a bit older at this point, he's been fostered in Doriath. He obviously is fluent in Sindarin now. But when news stops coming of his mother and sister, he gets worried about them and he starts taking up arms. So he is now good friends with Beleg Cuthalion, which is Beleg Strongbow. That's what his name means, is strongbow. Bow as in archery bow. Not like bow tie. All right. Before we move on, I want to show off one of the illustrations, because it actually is an illustration of Rian, who was, again, the wife of Huor, brother of Hurin, who's married to Morwen. Do we understand the four names here, right? Rian and Huor, Hurin and Morwen. Okay? These are all mortals, but trying to get those straight in your heads. Let's switch over really quickly so I can show you guys. Yes. Okay. So we're going to switch over so you guys can see the illustration. Here we go. There we go. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit. So if you're over on TikTok, please head over to my YouTube channel. You'll be able to see all the illustrations, all the pretty stuff. Well, it's, you know, this picture is a little bit more gruesome than the others, but... So this is Rian, after the Nirnaeth Nodiad. This is where she goes to, what's the name of it? Hauth en Dengin. Haudendengin. Which obviously is a hill of corpses, right? So she goes to this hill and she just lays down and dies. Which is a thing that Tolkien allows his mortals to do, okay? Aragorn does this too. So you can basically just will yourself into an early death, if that makes sense. Oh, hi, Gray. Gray? Sorry, guys. Gray. You've been all over me this morning. You've got to go. Go on. Thank you. Silly boy. I love you, Gray. My cat is so needy today. Lay down. Meow. Okay. But yes, so Rian goes to this hill and she just decides to die. Mortals, when they get to a certain age, they tend to basically let go of their bodies. For lack of a better phrase, they let go of their bodies before they can go insane. Before senile happens, okay? So before they go senile, they can just sort of relinquish their bodies and pass away. So this is what Aragorn ends up doing. It's what most Númenóreans end up doing. YouTube channel is Wizard Way Kris. Same as this. Link is in my bio, so you can get over there pretty easily from my link tree. But there is the illustration. We're about to hit another one, so I'm thinking we might just jump ahead to that second illustration. Actually, no, we haven't hit that plot point yet, so we'll go back to just reading. Okay. So, back to the story. So, he becomes the companion-in-arms to Beleg-Cuthalion. And when 3 years had passed, Turin returned again to Menogroth, but he came from the wild and was unkept, and his gear and garments were wayworn. Now one there was in Doriath, of the people of the Nandor, high in the councils of the king. Syros was his name. He had long begrudged to Turin the honor he received as Thingol's foster son, and seated opposite to him at the board, he taunted him. Forgot about my voice filters. Whoops. And seated opposite to him at the board, he taunted him, saying,
"If the men of Heathlum are so wild and fell, of what sort are the women of that land? Do they run like deer clad only in their hair?"
Then Turin, in great anger, took up a drinking vessel and cast it at Syros, and he was grievously hurt. Can we enjoy that for just a moment? In great anger, took up a drinking vessel and cast it at Syros, and he was grievously hurt. Bitch threw a bottle. Like he threw a goblet at this guy. He threw a goblet at this guy and injured him badly. How? That's what you get, Syros. On the next day, Syros waylaid Turin as he set out from Menogroth to return to the marches, but Turin overcame him and set him to run naked as a hunted beast through the woods. Then Syros, fleeing in terror before him, fell into the chasm of a stream, and his body was broken on a great rock in the water. But others coming saw what was done, and Mablung was among them, and he bade Turin return with him to Menogroth and abide the judgment of the king, seeking his pardon. But Turin, deeming himself now an outlaw and fearing to be held captive, refused Mablung's bidding and turned swiftly away. And passing through the girdle of Melian, he came into the woods west of Syrion. There he joined himself to a band of such houseless and desperate men as could be found in those evil days lurking in the wild. and their hands were turned against all who came in their path, elves and men and orcs. So in that one paragraph, Turin went from being basically like a prince of Doriath, because he's Thingol's foster son, and well respected. He threw a goblet at this guy and injured him. And when the guy is like wanting to confront him about it later, Turin overcomes him. Basically, they probably throw hands, but Turin wins. Because this is just a counselor. He's not a warrior. Syros is not a warrior. And he makes him run naked through the woods as if he's gonna hunt him. This is some Game of Thrones shit right here. Turin did a bad. Like, Turin's got a temper, and it got him in trouble here. So he's chasing Syros, and Syros, trying to get away from him, fearing for his life, jumps, into... Well, he tries to basically jump a portion of the river. And fails. So his body is broken on the rocks, and he dies. And Turin, other elves watching this happen are like, bro, what the fuck? Bro, like, I know you don't like the guy, but what the hell? And they're like, you have to turn yourself in. You have to beg for forgiveness from the king, because, like, what were you even thinking? He's like a stupid teenager here, okay? And, he sort of gets some sense knocked into him, and he's suddenly like, probably shouldn't have done that. Bye! It's like, I'm gonna be imprisoned for this, and I did it bad, and he doesn't necessarily say he's sorry, but he runs off. He admits his guilt in that he runs away, okay? It's not a good time. Not a good time. Turin the bottle thrower, basically. So he takes up with a band of wildmen, and they don't care who they're fighting, they just fight everybody. Isn't that a mood? Isn't that like a super Aries thing to do? Was Turin born in Aries? Says an Aries. I don't care who I'm fighting, I'm just gonna fight everybody. It's totally what an Aries would do. But when all that had befallen was told and searched out before Thingol, the king pardoned Turin, holding him wronged. In that time, Beleg Strongbow returned from the north marches and came to Menogroth seeking him, and Thingol spoke to Beleg, saying,
I grieve, Cuthalion, for I took Hurin's son as my son, and so he shall remain, unless Hurin himself should return out of the shadows to claim his own. I would not have any say that Turin was driven forth unjustly into the wild, and gladly would I welcome him back, for I loved him well.
And Beleg answered,
I will seek Turin until I find him, and I will bring him back to Menogroth if I can, for I love him also.
Aww. This is one of those slightly, like, you could read this as homoerotic if you wanted to. If you wanted to. I'm not saying you gotta, but you could. Beleg loves Turin. He loves him. What manner of love is up for interpretation. That's all I'm saying. So, Beleg is going to go after Turin, trying to find him. Then Beleg departed from Menogroth, and far across Valerian he sought in vain for tidings of Turin through many perils. But Turin abode long among the outlaws, and became their captain, and he named himself Nathan, the Wronged. Very warily they dwelt in the in the wooded lands south of Teglin. Teglin is a river. But when a year had passed since Turin fled from Doriath, Beleg came upon their lair by night. It chanced that at that time Turin was gone from the camp, and the outlaws seized Beleg and bound him, and treated him cruelly, for they feared him as a spy of the king of Doriath. But Turin, returning and seeing what was done, was stricken with remorse for all their evil and lawless deeds, and he released Beleg, and they renewed their friendship. And Turin forswore thenceforth war or plunder against all save the servants of Angband. So Turin basically swears off. He says, I'm not going to fight anybody. I'm not going to plunder anybody except for servants of Morgoth, except for the actual enemy. Remember who the real enemies are, right? I know I'm taking that from Hunger Games, but still, the same theme. Same theme. Okay, before we get into the next section, which has a bit more dialogue, I'm going to show you guys another illustration. This chapter has a lot of illustrations, okay? It has a lot, so let's switch things on up so I can show you guys the illustration. Here we go. Okay. Boink. This one's a vertical illustration, so I'm trying to show it on a different screen for you guys. This is Syros trying to jump the river and failing. It was at this moment he knew he'd fucked up. And that goes for both of them. Pretty sure Syros isn't too thrilled about this situation either. Alright, zoom in. Zoom in a little bit. So you see Turin over here, chasing him with a sword drawn, and poor Syros running naked and jumping off the cliffside here. It's not a good look. It's not a good look, Turin. So, once again, we get all this really pretty background painting from Ted Nasmith. Ted Nasmith is such a great artist. Also, small piece of news, just because I'm excited about it, an artist that I really love, Jenny Dolphin, who does primarily Silmarillion art, watercolor primarily. She is going to be featured in the 2023 official Tolkien calendar. So, congratulations, Jenny. Super happy for her. Let's see. So support your not local. Support your not local artist friends. Jenny Dolphin lives in Germany, I believe. Fantastic watercolor art, though. I own way too many of her pieces. Not the originals, because that would be bonkers expensive, but I do have a lot of prints from her. Really good artwork. Alright, so have we seen our fill of Turin goading Syros off a cliff? Moving on! Okay. So he's forsworn killing or plundering anybody but the actual enemies, the agents of Angband. Then Beleg told Turin of King Thingol's pardon, and he sought to persuade him by all means that he might to return with him to Doriath, saying that there was great need of his strength and valor on the north marches of the realm.
Of late, the orcs have found a way down out of Tower Nufuin.
he said.
They have made a road through the pass of Anach. I do not remember it,
said Turin. Sorry guys, my cat is really distracting me while I'm trying to run these lines. Gray. Settle down. Settle down. Thank you. Okay, so Turin just said, I do not remember it.
Never did we go so far from the borders,
said Beleg.
But you have seen the peaks of the Chrysaegrim far off, and to the east... Oh, sorry. And to the east, the dark walls of the Gorgoroth. Anach lies between, above the high springs of Mindeb, a hard and dangerous road. Yet many come by it... Yet many come by it now, and Dimbar, which used to be in peace, is falling under the Black Hand, and the men of Brethiel are troubled. We are needed there.
But in the privacy of the words of the and he for his
Hard you are, Turin, and stubborn. Now the turn is mine. If you wish indeed to have the strong bow beside you, look for me in Dimbar, for thither I shall return.
On the next day, Beleg set out, and Turin went with him. Turin went with him a bow shot from the camp, but he said nothing.
It is farewell then, son of Hurin,
said Beleg. Then Turin looked out westward, and he saw far off the great height of Amon Rúth. And unwitting of what lay before him, he answered,
You have said, seek me in Dimbar, but I say, seek for me in Amon Rúth, else this is our last farewell.
Then they parted in friendship, yet in sadness. So just to summarize really quickly. Beleg tells him, hey, Thingol pardoned you. You can come home. And we kind of need you. We kind of need your strength and, your skill with your sword to defend this northern portion of Doriath. I'm gonna say, and I would normally show you a map, but I feel like we're making a slow going here, so let's go a bit further before I pull the map out. So he's like, I'm going up to Dimbar, because that's where I'm needed. That's where the forces of Doriath are needed right now. Because after the 5th battle, it's not a safe place. Valerian is not at all safe. Like, a lot of... Like, the bulk of Valerian is now under Morgoth's control, so travel, not safe. So Beleg is like, I'm going to Dimbar, you should come with me. And Turin's like, no, I'm going to Amon Rúth, you should come with me. And so they get to an impasse and part ways. So they're still friends, but they're sad because they've parted. The two of them are so sweet. Okay. Now Beleg returned to the Thousand Caves, and coming before Thingol and Melian, he told them of all that had befallen, save only of his evil handling by Turin's companions. Then Thingol sighed, and he said,
What more would Turin have me do? Give me leave, lord,
said Beleg.
and I will guard him and guide him as I may. Then no man shall say that elven words are lightly spoken, nor would I wish to see so great a good run to nothing in the wild.
Then Thingol gave Beleg leave to do as he would, and he said,
Beleg Cuthalion, for many deeds you have earned my thanks, but not the least is the finding of my foster son. At this parting, ask for any gift, and I will not deny it to you. I ask then for a sword of worth,
said Beleg.
For the orcs come now too thick and close for a bow only, and such blade as I have is no match for their armor. Choose from all that I have,
said Thingol.
Save only Aran Ruth, my own.
Then Beleg chose Angrirel, and that was a sword of great worth. And it was so named because it was made of iron that fell from heaven as a blazing star. It would cleave all earth-delved iron. One other sword only in Middle-earth was like to it. That sword does not enter into this tale, though it was made of the same ore by the same smith. And that smith was Eol, the dark elf, who took Arethel, Turgon's sister, to wife. And he gave Angrirel to Thingol as fee, which he begrudged, for leave to dwell in Non-Elmoth. But its mate, Angrirel, he kept, until it was stolen from him by Maeglin, his son. So just to clear up any confusion there might be with these two swords, they were both forged from a meteorite, and they can cleave any iron that has been, forged and smithed in Middle-earth. So very, very powerful swords. There are only two of them. So one, Angrirel, was given to Thingol so that Eol, the creator, the smith of these swords, could stay in Non-Elmoth, which is a forest that's like just outside of Doriath. But it's still technically within Doriath's protection, if you will. It's like a territory. It's right next door though. So it's kind of a small extension of Doriath. So Thingol gives him leave to stay in Non-Elmoth and live there, and to pay for that, he gives him Angrirel. But the second sword, which is Angrirel, my R's are not trilling today. Angrirel. Angrirel is the sister sword, basically, to Angrirel. But that one, Eol kept it until his son Maeglin stole it and ran off to Gondolin. So now Angrirel has been given to Beleg. This is gonna be important. Okay, here we go. But as Thingol turned the hilt of Angrirel towards Beleg, Melian looked at the blade, and she said,
There is malice in this sword. The dark heart of the smith still dwells in it. It will not love the hand it serves, neither will it abide with you long.
Nevertheless, I will wield it while I may,
said Beleg.
Another gift I will give to you, Cuthalion,
said Melian.
That shall be your help in the wild, and the help also of those whom you choose.
And she gave him store of lembas, the waybread of the elves, wrapped in leaves of silver. and the threads that bound it were sealed at the knots with the seal of the queen, a wafer of white wax shaped as a single flower of Telperion. For according to the customs of the Eldalier, the keeping and giving of lembas belonged to the queen alone. In nothing did Melian show greater favor to Turin than in this gift. For the Eldar had never before allowed men to use this waybread, and seldom did so again. Then Beleg departed with these gifts from Menogroth, and went back to the north marches, where he had his lodges, and many friends. Then in Dimbar the elves were driven back, and Angrirel rejoiced to be unsheathed. But when the winter came, and war was stilled, suddenly his companions missed Beleg, and he returned to them no more. So as the action slows down, Beleg leaves. So there's a small break there, and we'll show you yet another illustration. Yet another. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the audio effects, and I hope they're not switching too unpleasantly. I try. So once again, I'm gonna switch on over so you guys can see the illustrations. Yoink. Okay. So this is Amon-Rûdh. Amon-Rûdh. It's R circumflex U DH. DH in Sindarin is pronounced like a voiced TH. Like in these, those, or feather. The. You can feel the vibration with this TH, unlike thin. So a voiceless TH is th. A voiced TH is th. Same mouth position, but one you actually engage your vocal cords. So that is a voiced TH, which for Elvish is spelt as a DH. Y'all learned some Elvish. Y'all learned some Elvish from me just now. There's the rest of the illustration. Such a pretty illustration. What, Gray? Hi. And he's back. Gray, why are you so needy today? Move it. No, Gray. Oh dear. Oh no. Oh crap. Seriously? Am I still live? Gosh, I hope I'm still live. Okay, test. I think I'm still live. It says I'm still live. Someone put something in chat so I know my cat didn't just screw up my entire stream. Okay, cool. Thank you, Lord Bunnybone. I appreciate that. Yeah, now you settle down, you Jake. Alright. We're here. Everything is awesome. It's fine. Thank you, everybody. So that is Amon-Rûdh. Now, down here, we haven't quite hit this plot point yet, but that's Turin, right there. And we'll talk about the dwarfies with. Alright, let us continue. Okay. Turn this just a little bit. Alright, let's continue. Now when Beleg parted from the outlaws and returned into Doriath, Turin led them away westward out of Sirion's Vale, for they grew weary of their life without rest, ever watchful and in fear of pursuit. and they sought for a safer lair. And it chanced at a time of evening that they came upon 3 dwarves, who fled before them, but one that lagged behind was seized and thrown down, and a man of the company took his bow and let fly an arrow at the others as they vanished into the dusk. Now the dwarf that they had taken was named Mim, and he pleaded for his life before Turin, and offered as ransom to lead them to his hidden halls which none might find without his aid. Then Turin pitied Mim. Then Turin pitied Mim and spared him, and he said,
"Where is your house?"
Then Mim answered, "High above the lands lies the house of Mim. Upon the great hill, Amon-Rûdh is that hill called now, since the elves changed all the names." Then Turin was silent, and he looked down upon the dwarf, and at last he said,
"You shall bring us to that place."
On the next day they set out thither, following Mim to Amon-Rûdh. Now that hill stood upon the edge of the moorlands that rose between the vales of Syrion and Narog, and high above the stony heath it reared its crown. But its steep grey head was bare, save for the red seragon that mantled the stone. And as the men of Turin's band drew near, the sun westering broke through the clouds and fell upon the crown, and the seragon was all in flower. Then one among them said, "There's blood on the hilltop." But Mim led them by secret paths up the steep slopes of Amon-Rûdh, and at the mouth of his cave he bowed to Turin, saying, "Enter into Bar and Danwith, the house of ransom, for so it shall be called." And now there came another dwarf bearing light to greet him, and they spoke together and passed swiftly down into the darkness of the cave. But Turin followed after, and came at length to a chamber far within, lit by dim lamps hanging upon chains. There he found Mim kneeling at a stone couch beside the wall, and he tore his beard and wailed, crying one name unceasingly. And on the couch there lay a third. But Turin entering, stood beside Mim and offered him aid. Then Mim looked up at him and said, "You can give no aid, for this is Kim, my son, and he is dead, pierced by an arrow. He died at sunset. Ibun, my son, has told me." Then pity rose in Turin's heart, and he said to Mim,
"Alas, I would recall that shaft if I could. Now Bar and Danwith this house shall be called in truth, for if ever I come to any wealth, I will pay you a ransom of gold for your son, in token of sorrow, though it gladden your heart no more."
Then Mim rose and looked long at Turin. "I hear you," he said. "You speak like a dwarf lord of old. And at that I marvel. Now my heart is cooled, though it is not glad, and in this house you may dwell if you will, for I will pay my ransom." So began the abiding of Turin in the hidden house of Mim upon Amon-Rûdh. And he walked on the greensward before the mouth of the cave, and looked out east and west and north. Northward he looked, and descried the forest of Brethiel, climbing green about Amon-Obel in its mist. And thither his eyes were drawn ever and again, he knew not why, for his heart was set rather to the northwest, where league upon league away on the skirts of the sky it seemed to him that he could glimpse the mountains of shadow, the walls of his home. He's talking about Dor-Lomin. But at evening, Turin looked west into the sunset. As the sun rode down red into the hazes above the distant coasts, and the Vale of Narog lay deep in the shadows between. This is a really good opportunity to pull out the map. So let's pull out the map so I can show you guys where these locations are in relation to each other. And we'll sort of do a quick little review. Alright, here we go. Zoom that out. Okay. So here is our map of Valerian. So just as an aside, because we were talking a bit about non-Elmoth, this right here is non-Elmoth. So you can see it's not part of Doriath proper, but it's off to the side here. So Eol, the Dark Elf, gave Angrirel one of his meteorite swords to King Thingol, who lives in Menogroth. Here's Menogroth, as payment for leave to stay in non-Elmoth. So I mentioned those locations, wanted to show you guys where they are on the map. So the rivers that are typically mentioned, we were talking a little bit about the River Teglin, which is this one right here. The River Syrion, which is the main river in this part of Valerian. Syrion actually just means river. It means the big river. And so west, on this plain between Syrion and Narog, Narog is the other main river over here, it eventually does join with Syrion right here before it gets down to the marshes. That's the mouth of Syrion. But in this space between Narog and Syrion is where we find Aman-Ruth. So this is the Red Hill, where Turin currently is. And so from this hill, he can look east, he can look west, and he can look north. So Aman-Obel was mentioned really briefly in here, which is part of the Forest Brethil. And it mentioned that he would look northwest, right? He would look northwest toward Ergwethrin, because Dor Loman was his home originally. That's where he was born. And that's where he believes his mother and sister currently are, where he hadn't gotten any word from them. So he just sort of assumes that something bad may have happened to them, but, you know, dark times. So Dor Loman is over here, and he can see it from Aman-Ruth. Okay? Really far off in the distance, but he can just barely make out the mountains there. Hey everybody! Welcome, and if you're checking me out only on my TikTok, please head to my YouTube channel. You'll be able to see all the maps, all the illustrations, all the good stuff. Plus voice effects that I do on my voice every so often. So hopefully that gives a little bit more context. Beleg, because we were talking about, you know, where Aman-Ruth is where Turin has gone, but his friend Beleg Cuthalion has gone to Dimbar, at least temporarily, because this Dimbar region, along with the Pass of Anach, CH is ha, so Anach, like Anglachel. It's not Anglikel or Anglichel, it's Anglachel. So this Dimbar region in the Pass of Anach into Tower of Huin is... It's a pretty besieged area at this point. Like, there are a lot of dark forces, a lot of orcs. When you get into Nondungorthib, That's when you start getting the evil spiders that are descended from Ungoliant. So think like Shelob. Big, ugly, evil spiders. They come down from Ergogoroth. So, not a pleasant area. In general, the north marches of Doriath are not a great place to be. Especially during this time period after the Fifth Battle. So, lots of baddies here. So, now we know where Amun-Ruth is, which is where Turin currently is in the story, and Dimbar, which is where Beleg was, and as winter came and, you know, the fighting started sort of trickling off, he left his company in Dimbar. So Beleg is on the move, okay? Beleg is on the move, and Turin is at Amun-Ruth. And that unintentionally rhymed. Moving on. Okay. Where are we at? We're at an hour and a half. Okay, cool. We'll do a bit more. Let me look ahead really quickly. See where we're at. Okay. We'll go a few more pages. I have a spot where I'd like to end the stream, so that's still the goal. Actually, let me take a quick drink. Any water? I do have a reminder that's supposed to prompt me to keep drinking water as I stream every half hour. Half the time I ignore it, which is terrible. Alright. So, continuing on, if you are just joining me, if you happen to catch this and you're just joining, welcome. My name is Kris, this is Wizard Way. We are reading and reviewing the Silmarillion. This is a illustrated version of the Silm, a 2021 illustrated version. So there are some illustrations in this version that haven't been released before, which is really cool. So we are on chapter 21 of Turin Turambar. So Turin and his friend Beleg have been parted. Turin is on Amun-Ruth, which is the Red Hill. Well, it's technically the Bald Hill. It's the Bald Hill. Yes. Gosh, Elvish is not coming easy to me today. Amun-Ruth is the Bald Hill. So he's on Amun-Ruth, and he's bald. Bald as in bald. Reason being, as you saw in that illustration, or I guess you guys on TikTok didn't see it, I'll flash it for you really quickly. Looks like that. So the top of the hill is bald, except for Seragon, which is, it looks like blood. Sereg is blood, so Seragon is a flowering plant, a flowering grass-like plant that is on top, it grows on top of this hill. From a distance, it just looks ashen and white. It looks like a bald head, thus it being called Amun-Ruth. Because elves name things the way they see them. You know, Heathlum is full of mists, so they named it Heathlum, which is land of mists. They tend to be very simplistic names. This is why, like, while it's very difficult to remember all of the crazy names in the Silmarillion, the translations of them from the Elvish make them very descriptive. Tolkien did not make really complex names. They just seem complex because you don't know the base language. Once you learn some Elvish, a lot of the names make a lot more sense, and it's much easier to remember who's who. Which is why I do these streams. I try to help you guys a little bit with the Elvish. Like the No Hair Hill. Exactly. So when Seragon is in bloom, it's bright red. Ah, yes, the misty place, because it has mist. Exactly. That is exactly how Tolkien did it. Hey! Hey, Birdman, what is up? Welcome. Could one of the black swords be the one seen in the Amazon series poster? Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Good point. Yes, so. Get to the page where I was so I don't lose my spot. Okay. So there is an image from the teaser posters for the Rings of Power TV show coming from Amazon. And there is a dark, almost obsidian-looking like blade, and it's broken. Very cool pummel with that sword. Very cool pummel, and I guess it's called a hand cage. I don't do swordplay, so I don't know the proper term for it. I think that's right. But very, very cool poster image with someone holding this really cool-looking broken sword, and it's black-bladed. The only specifically black-bladed swords in Tolkien's Legendarium are these swords that we're talking about, Angrirel and Angrirel. Yeah, Angrirel. So these two swords were forged from a meteorite, and so they have that sort of black obsidian look to them. But they're super, super hard. And they can cut through normal iron, which is why people were looking at that sword design on the poster and going, Because we will cover more of the fate of Angrirel, because at this point, Beleg has it. This will change. But we'll explain why it's a possibility that the image in the poster is Angrirel. So we'll get to that, but yes, it is a possibility, and we'll see more of a description as we go through the story. Okay? Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot about that. It's a good connection to make. The drama! There's so much drama. But especially when it comes to Beren and Luthien, Turin Turambar, and the Fall of Gondolin. Like, this is why these three stories ended up in their own separate books at one point. The Great Tales of Valerian. Because they're the three main stories in the Silm, but all of them are tied together because of the way that they connect to the Silmarils. Because that's why it's called the Silmarillion, the story of the Silmarils. So all of these, in their roundabout ways, contribute to the overall story of the Silmarils. This is why the Silmarillion would make an amazing television series. But the Tolkien estate's never going to give up those rights. I honestly don't think they are ever going to give up the Silm rights. I can't even imagine how expensive they would be if they did. It could be made into a really cool series. I don't think it'll ever happen, unfortunately. Alright, so continuing onward. In the time that followed, Turin spoke much with Mim, and sitting with him alone he listened to his lore and the tale of his life. For Mim came of dwarves that were banished in ancient days from the great dwarf cities of the east. That would be Belagost and Nogrod. Nogrod and Belagost are the two main dwarvish dwellings in Ered Luin, or the Blue Mountains. And those are on the eastern boundary. That's like the eastern boundary of Valerian. So his people were banished from the dwarf cities of the east. And long before the return of Morgoth, they wandered westward into Valerian. No gray. Stop it. I see you. But they became diminished in stature and in smithcraft, and they took to lives of stealth, walking with bowed shoulders and furtive steps. Before the dwarves of Nogrod and Belagost came west over the mountains, the elves of Valerian knew not what these others were, and they hunted them, and slew them. But afterwards they let them alone, and they were called Nogath Nibin, the petty dwarves, in the Sindarin tongue. The elves aren't exactly nice in their naming of the dwarves. They're never complimentary in their naming of the dwarves. Like, all the names of the dwarves are kind of... they're kind of low-key mean. They call them, like, the short folk, and they call them, you know, the ground folk. Like, just, you know, people in caves. They just live in caves like idiots. They're never complimentary. But the Nogath Nibin, the petty dwarves in the Sindarin tongue. They loved none but themselves, and if they feared and hated the orcs, they hated the Eldar no less, and the exiles most of all, aka the Noldor, which are a sect of the elves. For the Noldor, they said, had stolen their lands and their homes. Long ere King Finrod Felagund came over the sea, the caves of Nargothrond were discovered by them, and by them its delving was begun. And beneath the crown of Amon-Rûdh, the bald hill, the slow hands of the petty dwarves had bored and deepened the caves through the long years that they dwelt there, untroubled by the grey elves of the woods. Those are the Sindar. Sindar are the grey elves. But now, at last, they had dwindled and died out of Middle-earth, all save Mim and his 2 sons. And Mim was old even in the reckoning of dwarves, old and forgotten. And in his halls the smithies were idle, and the axes rusted, and their name was remembered only in ancient tales of Doriath and Nargothrond. But when the year drew on to midwinter, snow came down from the north heavier than they had known it in the river vales, and Amon-Rûdh was covered deep, and they said that the winters worsened in Valerian as the power of Angband grew. And I want to pause there and make a bit of a note, because there's a reason. There's a reason that as the power of Angband grows, winters get harsher. And again, this sort of weirdly parallels to, you know, the wall and winter is coming from Game of Thrones, right? But you have to keep in mind, Tolkien came before all of that. Tolkien was writing the Silmarillion decades before George R.R. Martin and J.K. Rowling and like all these other authors who have borrowed shit. They've borrowed a lot of fantasy concepts from Tolkien. And this is one of those concepts. So not only the North being the cold place where the bad guys dwell, but the concept of snow itself being tied up with evil. So cruel winters, frost, all of these things, they kill off plants, right? They kill off plants, they make life difficult. Snow and frost are creations of Morgoth. They were Melkor's creations. And this was him bastardizing the creations of his fellows, which was the way that Melkor did things. So in the Ainulindale, which is the creation myth of Tolkien's world, all of the Ainur, or the children of thought, they are the heavenly beings of Tolkien's world. There is one god, and he created the Ainur from his thought. So think of them like archangels, or angels in general. And then the Valar are like the head ones, so they're like the archangels, if you had to put it in a Christian context. So Melkor is like the morning star in that he is the oldest and the most powerful of the Ainur. But Melkor likes to sing discord into the song that is the creation of the world. So Melkor rebels. He wants to create something of his own, and that is in opposition to the greater theme that the other Ainur are singing. So he creates discord, and that sort of clashes with things. So you see creations like air and water, air being the realm of Manwë, water being the realm of Ulmo. These are two other Valar. They've created these things. But rain, thunderstorms, and snow, and frost were all Melkor's disruptions. So he heard these concepts because Melkor has the ability to do a little bit of everything that his fellow Ainur do. So Melkor has the opportunity to sort of twist things a little bit, to put his own spin on the creations of his fellows. And that's how we got frost and snow and thunderstorms and things like this. All of these destructive forces of nature have their root in Melkor. So when Melkor / Morgoth, same guy, different name. Morgoth is the name that was given to him by the elves. It means black foe or dark foe. When Morgoth gains power, these elements that were sort of tied up with his part of the song enhance or become, more of a threat. So things get, you get more extreme temperatures because volcanoes. Volcanoes as well are also a Morgoth thing. That was Aule's bit, and then Melkor twisted that and made, the really harsh extreme temperatures of volcanoes and the destructive force of a volcano. So the whole destructive force thing is like Melkor's twist on these various elements that were created, that were sung by his fellows. Cold countries in Tolkien's universe are this way because of Melkor. Yes. Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, so when you step out into a snowstorm or you slip on ice outside, you can curse the heavens. Damn you, Melkor! For real, though. The elves would have. Particularly harsh winter, blame it on Melkor. Really sweltering summer, or volcano erupts, Vesuvius erupts, damn you, Melkor. That is how it works. And so it's a wonderful little detail that Tolkien put into here that people are noticing as Angband and Melkor gain more power in Beleriand after the fifth battle. The winters get harsher. They get longer and they get harsher. And so everybody's sort of noticing this, but we don't go into depth of why, and I thought I'd explain that to you guys. I'm like, I love this stuff. Like, it's the little things, it's the details like that make me so excited. Okay, so we're talking about the petty dwarves, we're talking about midwinter. Snow came down from the north heavier than they had known it in the river vales. Right? And they said that the winters worsened in Beleriand as the power of Angband grew. And that makes perfect sense. Okay? Moving on. Then only the hardiest dared stir abroad, and some fell sick, and all were pinched with hunger. But in the dim dusk of a winter's day there appeared suddenly among them a man, as it seemed, of great bulk and girth, cloaked and hooded in white, and he walked up to the fire without a word. And when men sprang up in fear, he laughed, and threw back his hood, and beneath his wide cloak he bore a great pack, and in the light of the fire Turin looked again on the face of Beleg Cuthalion. Isn't that great? He's this big hulking figure, he just comes right up to the fire without saying anything, and they're like, oh! And he just throws off his hood and laughs at them. It's like he's playing a joke on them. He's like, it's just a pack, you guys. It's me. Hi. Friend. Beleg's just playing a trick on him. I missed something in the comments. Hold on. Deserts, Melkor. Snowstorms, Melkor. Random heat wave that came in. Damn you, Melkor. Yeah, exactly. That is precisely it. Why is rain part of Melkor? Would Yavanna like the water for the trees? Yes, so rain and snow are specifically listed by Tolkien as Melkor's creations. And it was Melkor's attempt at twisting things that ended up not being so bad. Because I believe in the Ainulindalë, I would have to look back to find the exact way that it's spoken. But Manwë and Ulmo are like, this is even better than we imagined. Thanks, Melkor. They're like, the music of the rain as it hits stone is... They're like, that was a great idea. Thanks, Melkor. And Melkor's like... frumping because he's like, I tried to make it worse and I made it better by accident. So yes, some of the things that Melkor tried to mess with ended up backfiring on him. They ended up being useful or beautiful in their own ways. So you look at the symmetry of snowflakes, there's beauty there. That was an unintentional side effect. Or maybe it wasn't an unintentional side effect. Maybe, you know, if we can give Melkor some credit, he's an incredibly creative and powerful Ainu. I think that finding the beauty in things that he tried to twist is also telling of his character. That even in dark things or even dark intentions, right? They overall serve the greater beauty and complexity of the world. And Eru, the one god, Iluvatar, he himself says, you know, all of this stuff that you're trying to do, Melkor, it's only going to serve my theme and my song even more in the end. The more of a fight you put up, the better this overall picture's gonna be. It's just painting with darker colors, right? Yeah, Melkor was like, I curse thee with water from the sky. Stop liking it. Why do you like it so much? But yes, so hopefully that answers your question. For sure. Happy to help. So Beleg throws his cloak back and laughs because he just played a trick on the silly humans. Thus Beleg returned once more to Turin, and their meeting was glad, and with him he brought out of Dimbar the Dragon Helm of Dor Lomin, thinking that it might lift Turin's thought again above his life in the wilderness as the leader of a petty company. But still Turin would not return to Doriath, and Beleg, yielding to his love against his wisdom, remained with him, and did not depart. And in that time he labored much for the good of Turin's company. Those that were hurt or sick he tended, and gave to them the lembas of Melian. And they were quickly healed, for though the Grey Elves were less in skill and knowledge than the exiles from Valinor, in the days of the life of Middle-earth they had a wisdom beyond the reach of men. And because Beleg was strong and enduring, far-sighted in mind as in eye, he came to be held in honor among the outlaws. But the hatred of Mim for the elf that had come into Bar and Danwith grew ever greater, and he sat with Ibun, his son, in the deepest shadows of his house, speaking to none. But Turin paid now little heed to the dwarf, and when winter passed and spring came, they had sterner work to do. Who knows now the counsels of Morgoth? Who can measure the reach of his thought? Who had been Melkor, mighty among the Ainur in the great song, and sat now a dark lord upon a dark throne in the north, weighing in his malice all the tidings that came to him, and perceiving more of the deeds and purposes of his enemies than even the wisest of them feared, save only Melian the queen. To her often the thought of Morgoth reached out, and there was foiled. So they're like, Morgoth's keeping an eye on stuff. Don't forget about Morgoth here. The wheels are always turning, okay? And now again the might of Angband was moved, and as the long fingers of a groping hand, the forerunners of his armies probed the ways into Valerian. Through Anach they came, and Dimbar was taken. So that same section we were looking at with that pass through the mountains, from Tower Nafuin, Morgoth's taken it back again. And Dimbar was taken, and all the north marches of Doriath. Down the ancient road they came that led through the long defile of Syrion. Past the isle where Minas Tirith of Finrod had stood, and so through the land between Malduin and Syrion, and all through the eaves of Brethiel to the crossings of Teiglin. I'll have to pull up the map again. Basically that whole northern section of, you saw the mountains of Dorlomin, and then the mountains of Tower Nafuin. The Pass of Syrion is where the river cuts through there. And that's where the original Minas Tirith was built. And that's the watchtower that was built by Finrod Felagund, the one they just listed. So at this point, that place is being taken over once again by Morgoth, and he's his line of forces is creeping its way down into Valerian again. Thence the road went on to the guarded plain, but the orcs did not go far upon it as yet, for there dwelt now in the wild a terror that was hidden, and upon the red hill were watchful eyes of which they had not been warned. For Turin put on again the helm of Hador, and far and wide in Valerian the whisper went, under wood and over stream and through the passes of the hills, saying that the helm and bow that had fallen in Dimbar had risen again beyond hope. The helm and bow referring to the Dragon Helm, which Turin is now wearing, the helm of Doromin, and bow as in Beleg, Cuthalion. Because his sort of epicé, his given name there, Cuthalion, means strongbow. So the helm and bow, that's what they're referring to. Then many who went leaderless, disposed but undaunted, took heart again, and came to seek the two captains. Dor Quarthol, the land of bow and helm, was in that time named all the region between Teiglin and the west march of Doriath, and Turin named himself anew Gorthol, the dread helm. And his heart was high again. In Menogroth, and in the deep halls of Nargothrond, and even in the hidden realm of Gondolin, the fame of the deeds of the two captains was heard. And in Angband also they were known. Then Morgoth laughed, for now, by the Dragon Helm was Hurin's son revealed to him again, and ere long Amon Ruth was ringed with spies. Because you have to remember, while he took Hurin captive, Morgoth took Hurin captive and put him on this mountaintop and was just like, yeah, you can just watch. You can watch as I destroy everything of yours and make you suffer while I hunt your son down and kill him. Like, that was the point. Morgoth being a douche. But the only identifying, the only way that Morgoth could identify Hurin's son was through an heirloom like the Dragon Helm. So as soon as Turin puts that on, Morgoth's like, found him. Found him, and the games begin. So everyone's taking a look at the bow and helm and being like, and Morgoth's like, found them. They're going to be much easier to take down now that I know where they are, right? So now there are spies all around Amon-Rûdh. In the waning of the year, Mim the dwarf and Ibun his son went out from Barandanwydd to gather roots in the wild for their winter store, and they were taken captive by orcs. Then, for a second time, Mim promised to guide his enemies by secret paths to his home on Amon-Rûdh, but yet he sought to delay the fulfillment of his promise and demanded that Gorthol should not be slain, Gorthol being Turin. Because Gorthol means dread helm in Elvish, dread helm. Gor, like Morgoth, Gorgoroth. Gor is dread, and Thol is helm. So Gorthol, dread helm. So Mim is, leading the bad guys to the lair, but he's demanding that Turin be spared. Then the orc captain laughed, and he said to Mim, "Assuredly, Turin's son of Hurin shall not be slain." Thus was Barandanwydd betrayed, for the orcs came upon it by night at unawares, guided by Mim. There many of Turin's company were slain as they slept, but some, fleeing by an inner stair, came out upon the hilltop, and there they fought until they fell, and their blood flowed out upon the Seragon, the blood-like plants, flowed out upon the Seragon that mantled the stone. But a net was cast over Turin as he fought, and he was enmeshed in it, and overcome, and led away. And at length, when all was silent again, Mim crept out of the shadows of his house, and as the sun rose over the mists of Syrion, he stood beside the dead men on the hilltop. But he perceived that not all of those that lay there were dead. For by one his gaze was returned, and he looked in the eyes of Beleg the elf. Then, with hatred long stored, Mim stepped up to Beleg and drew forth the sword Angrirel that lay beneath the body of one that had fallen beside him. But Beleg, stumbling up, seized back the sword and thrust it at the dwarf. And Mim, in terror, fled, wailing from the hilltop. And Beleg cried after him,
"The vengeance of the house of Hador will find you yet."
Now Beleg was sorely wounded, but he was mighty among the elves of Middle-earth, and he was moreover a master of healing. Therefore he did not die, and slowly his strength returned, and he sought in vain among the dead for Turin to bury him. But he found him not, and then he knew that Hurin's son was yet alive, and taken to Ogbund. With little hope, Beleg departed from Amon-Rûdh and set out northward, towards the crossings of Teglin, following in the track of the orcs. And he crossed over the Brithiach, and journeyed through Dimbar towards the pass of Anach. And now he was not far behind them, for he went without sleeping, whereas they had tarried on their road, hunting in the lands and fearing no pursuit as they came northward. And not even in the dreadful woods of Tower Nufuin did he swerve from the trail, for the skill of Beleg was greater than any that have been in Middle-earth. But as he passed by night through that evil land, he came upon one lying asleep at the foot of a great dead tree. And Beleg, staying his steps beside the sleeper, saw that it was an elf. Then he spoke to him and gave him lembas, and asked him what fate had brought him to that terrible place, and he named himself Gwindor, son of Gwilyn. Gwindor is my favorite character. I love Gwindor. Grieving, Beleg looked upon him, for Gwindor was now but a bent and fearful shadow of his former shape and mood, when in the Nirnaeth Arnoediad that lord of Nargothrond rode with rash courage to the very doors of Angband, and there was taken. For few of the Noldor whom Morgoth captured were put to death, because of their skill in forging and in mining for metals and gems. And Gwindor was not slain, but put to labor in the mines of the north. By secret tunnels known only to themselves, the mining elves might sometimes escape, and thus it came to pass that Beleg found him, spent and bewildered in the mazes of Taur Nufuin. And Gwindor told him that as he lay and lurked among the trees, he saw a great company of orcs passing northwards, and wolves went with them. And among them was a man whose hands were chained, and they drove him onward with whips. Very tall he was, said Gwindor, as tall as are the men from the misty hills of Heathlum. Then Beleg told him of his own errand in Taur Nufuin, and Gwindor sought to dissuade him from his quest, saying that he would not but join Turin in the anguish that awaited him. But Beleg would not abandon Turin, and despairing himself, he aroused hope again in Gwindor's heart. And together they went on, following the orcs until they came out of the forest on the high slopes that ran down to the barren dunes of Anfauglyth. There, within sight of the peaks of Thangorodrim, the orcs made their encampment in a bare dell as the light of day was failing. And setting wolf sentinels all about, they fell to carousing. A great storm rode up out of the west, and lightning glittered on the shadowy mountains far away, as Beleg and Gwindor crept towards the dell. When all in the camp were sleeping, Beleg took his bow and in the darkness shot the wolf sentinels, one by one and silently. Then, in great peril, they entered in, and they found Turin fettered hand and foot, and tied to a withered tree. And all about him knives that had been cast at him were embedded in the trunk, and he was senseless in a sleep of great weariness. But Beleg and Gwindor cut the bonds that held him, and lifting him, they carried him out of the dell. Yet they could bear him no further than to a thicket of thorn trees a little way above. There they laid him down, and now the storm drew very near. Beleg drew his sword Angrirel, and with it he cut the fetters that bound Turin. But fate was that day more strong, for the blade slipped as he cut the shackles, and Turin's foot was pricked. Then he was roused into a sudden wakefulness of rage and fear, and seeing one bending over him with naked blade, he leapt up with a great cry, believing that orcs were come again to torment him. And grappling with him in the darkness, he seized Angrirel and slew Beleg Cuthalion, thinking him a foe. But as he stood, finding himself free and ready to sell his life dearly against imagined foes, there came a great flash of lightning above them, and in its light he looked down on Beleg's face. Then Turin stood stone still and silent, staring on that dreadful death, knowing what he had done. And so terrible was his face, lit by the lightning that flickered all about them, that Gwindor cowered down upon the ground and dared not raise his eyes. But now in the dell beneath, the orcs were aroused, and all the camp was in turmoil, for they feared the thunder that came out of the west, believing that it was sent against them by the great enemies beyond the sea. Orcs aren't very smart. Then a wind arose, and great rains fell, and torrents swept down from the heights of Taur Nufuin. And though Gwindor cried out to Turin, warning him of their utmost peril, he made no answer, but sat unmoving and unweeping in the tempest beside the body of Beleg Cuthalion. It's so sad. It's so freaking sad. When morning came, the storm passed away eastward over Lothlin, and the sun of autumn rose hot and bright. Son of autumn? That was winter. I'm losing my seasons now. Okay. Storm passed away eastward over Lothlin, and the sun of autumn rose hot and bright. But believing that Turin would have fled far away from that place, and all trace of his flight be washed away, the orcs departed in haste without longer search, and far off Gwindor saw them marching away over the steaming sands of Anfauglith. Thus it came to pass that they returned to Morgoth empty-handed, and left behind them the son of Hurin, who sat crazed and unwitting on the slopes of Tau Nafuin, bearing a burden heavier than their bonds. Then Gwindor roused Turin to aid him in the burial of Beleg, and he rose as one that walked in sleep, and together they laid Beleg in a shallow grave, and placed beside him Belthronding, his great bow, that was made of black yew wood. But the dread sword Angrirel Gwindor took, saying that it were better that it should take vengeance on the servants of Morgoth than lie useless in the earth. And he took also the lembas of Melian to strengthen them in the wild. Gwindor's smart. In general, Gwindor knows how to survive. Thus ended Beleg's strongbow, truest of friends, greatest in skill of all that harbored in the woods of Valerian in the elder days, at the hand of whom he loved most. And that grief was graven on the face of Turin and never faded. But courage and strength were renewed in the elf of Nargothrond, and departing from Tower Nafuin, he led Turin far away. Never once, as they wandered together on long and grievous paths, did Turin speak. And he walked as one without wish or purpose, while the year waned and winter drew on over the northern lands. But Gwindor was ever beside him, to guard him and guide him, and thus they passed westward over Syrion and came at length to Aethel Ivrin, the springs whence Narog rose beneath the mountains of shadow. So, just to give reference to where this is, perspective-wise, when we were talking about what Turin could see when he looked northwest from Amon-Ruth, they were the mountains that led to Dorloman, right? Right near that same area are the springs of Aethel Ivrin. Aethel Ivrin is sort of the source of the river Narog, which is the long river that then eventually flows into Syrion and goes south. Narog is the river on which Nargothrond is built. That's just further south. So they're at the springs that lead into the river Narog. Hopefully that gives you guys some perspective on where we're at. Okay, came at length to Aethel Ivrin, the springs whence Narog rose beneath the mountains of shadow. There Gwindor spoke to Turin, saying, "Awake, Turin, son of Hurin Thalion. On Ivrin's lake is endless laughter. She is fed from crystal fountains unfailing and guarded from Oh my gosh, I'm gonna start over. This is terrible. Awake, Turin, son of Hurin Thalion. On Ivrin's lake is endless laughter. She is fed from crystal fountains unfailing, and guarded from defilement by Ulmo, Lord of Waters, who wrought her beauty in ancient days." Then Turin knelt and drank from that water, and suddenly he cast himself down, and his tears were unloosed at last, and he was healed of his madness. There he made a song for Beleg, and he named it Lair Cu Beleg, the song of the great bow, singing it aloud, heedless of peril. And Gwindor gave the sword Angrirel into his hands, and Turin knew that it was heavy and strong and had great power, but its blade was black and dull and its edges blunt. Then Gwindor said, "This is a strange blade, and unlike any that I have seen in Middle-earth. It mourns for Beleg even as you do, but be comforted, for I return to Nargothrond to the house of Finarfin, and you shall come with me and be healed and renewed."
"Who are you?"
said Turin. "A wandering elf, A thrall escaped, whom Beleg met and comforted, said Gwindor. Yet once I was Gwindor, son of Gwilyn, a lord of Nargothrond, until I went to the Nirnaeth Arnodiad and was enslaved in Angband.
Then have you seen Hurin, son of Galdor, the warrior of Dorloman?
Said Turin. Sorry about that. Messed up my filters there. So, have you seen Hurin, son of Galdor? I have not seen him, said Gwindor, but rumor of him runs through Angband that he still defies Morgoth, and Morgoth has laid a curse upon him and all his kin.
That I do believe,
said Turin. And now they arose, and departing from Aethel Ivrin, they journeyed southward along the banks of Narog, until they were taken by scouts of the elves and brought as prisoners to the hidden stronghold. Thus did Turin come to Nargothrond. And we can pause there. So I know I didn't pause very much during that. It is a fantastic story. The villain who's so bad at their job, they're celebrated as a hero, yeah. Yeah, incredible story. It really is such a good story. And there are moments there, like, Tolkien isn't known for having really, like, heavy character development and emotional writing. Because, you know, the Silmarillion in general reads like a history book, right? There's a lot happening, and we don't tend to get too bogged down in the emotions of a character. Mostly they are told, but not shown, right? But you have these moments where he describes the way that grief manifests in Turin, and it's stunning. It's so well done. You know, and the fact that he goes into sort of this dazed madness where he can, you know, follow orders given to him by Gwindor, but that's literally all he's good for. He can't function because he's in a state of shock. And he finally gets to this, it's like he holds it together because he has to, right? He does what he must, but inside he's just, everything's just turned off. It's turned off so that he can survive and not have to deal with the emotional turmoil in that moment. And so when they finally get to Aethel Ivrin, he just loses it. He finally lets go of you know, that one bit of control that was just keeping him in that numb state. He finally lets it go, and he ends up just bawling. And he makes a song for his fallen friend, and he gets Angrirel back, and just... he finally comes out of that shock stupor. And just the way it's written is so well done. Alright, now, how many... Okay, we have one more illustration to share, and I think we're going to pause there for the day. Let's see where we're at. Gosh, there's so much story. Let's see. Yeah, I still think that's a good place to stop. Taking a look at what comes next and the flow of the narrative, I feel like that's probably a good place to pause for the day. But let's take a look at this last illustration. It's a good one. It's sad, but it's a good one. Okay, here we go. Ooh, zoom out. So all in cool tones. It's a bit more blue than it appears on screen. In real life, it's a bit more blue. Because it looks almost grayscale on the screen right here. But this is Beleg having been slain, Gwindor being like, ah, freaking out, and Turin shocked and dismayed, for lack of better words. And we'll zoom in so you can see the expressions, because it's just kind of, it's well done, but it's super sad. Like, look at that shock. The wide-eyed. He's like, ugh! Because he just killed his best friend. Like, that is his best friend. There was great love between these two characters. Canonically great love between them. How we interpret that in fandom is when you get, you know, were they lovers? They could have been, maybe. And then you have Gwindor. Which, this is actually a little bit inaccurate. It's a little bit inaccurate because Gwindor has lost his left hand. So this hand should not be here. we'll just cover it. There you go. I fixed it. Gwindor loses a hand when he is escaping Angband. After he's gotten free of the caves, he's pursued by a couple orcs that, you know, they try and catch him. And in that struggle, he loses his left hand. So, again, with elves being hardy folk, right? Gwindor is such a great character. What astounds me when it comes to Gwindor specifically is this is an elf who, like, all manner of bad things happen to him. All manner. You know, he's imprisoned, he works in, you know, the deep mines and forges of Angband. You know, he was married to a princess and, you know, gets lost, basically. He's tortured and maimed, he loses a hand, and yet, when he finds Turin and this terrible thing happens between, you know, Turin and Beleg, he sees the shock and he sees the grief, and he's like, don't worry, I've got you. I'll take care of you. Like, I know this was a mistake, and you cannot function right now. And Gwindor's just like, I'm gonna take care of you. And he leads him to a safe place where Turin finally, you know, wakes up and grieves. And he's just like, take heart. Take heart. I'm taking you to Nargothrond, and you're going to heal, and you're going to recover. You are going to be as okay as one can be after this. I'm gonna help you. And Gwindor had no reason to really do that, other than just being moved to pity. And being a nice guy. This ends up biting Gwindor in the ass, and we'll read about that next week. This ends up not being a good thing for Gwindor. But you know, he's still like, behold, this place is unsullied by Melkor. Like, this is sacred water here. And I've brought you here because I know it'll help you. He could have just taken Turin straight, you know, south to Doriath. He could have gone straight to Doriath, and he probably would have been welcomed. He probably would have been welcomed. It would have been a shorter journey, actually. It would have been a shorter journey for him to just take him back through Tower Nafween and down to Doriath. But instead, he went to the place where he knew that there was a healing magic that could help him. And his own motivation of getting home, because Nargothrond is home for Gwindor. So, yeah. There is our illustration. Poor Turin. Gosh. It's a sad story. I mean, it's why they call it the story, the tale of sorrow, right? a lot of bad things just keep on happening. It's a lot of bad. But this is one of those relationships that that can be read with a queer tilt. Because Beleg, we've never been given any information on Beleg as far as him having interest in female elves. So we can sort of assume that Beleg is either gay or pan, right? Because it's not specified that he likes women, ever. Turin ends up falling for a female elf, so that'll happen later on. But because of that, Turin would be bi or pan as well. So I don't like people oversimplifying it into saying these characters are gay, because they're not. Let's not erase the canonical bisexuality or pansexuality. So, you know, let's enjoy the characters that are queer, okay, and not try to force them into a specific stereotype. But this is one of those relationships that is typically used as a queer interpretation of Tolkien, whether you know, other Tolkien fans like it or not. So there you have it. So I think that's where we're going to stop, right here. Thus Turin came to Nargothrond. Gosh, and just things get so much worse for Gwindor. Gwindor's story is tragic. This guy gets no relief. And he's such a good elf. Gwindor is a good elf. He is a sweet little cinnamon bun, and he manages to stay strong in spirit through all of this adversity that he's faced with. And he's a sweet guy. And he tries to help, and he tries to advise and guide. And it ends up being bad for him. So that's where we're going to pause for today's reading of the Silmarillion. Again, this is my fair use interpretation of the book, and drawing a bunch of parallels so you guys can not only, you know, get through the story, but understand it on a deeper level, and how it connects to Tolkien's other works, and how it connects to more modern interpretations of Tolkien's work. So especially leading into the Rings of Power TV show. So taking a look at stuff like that. Trying to help you guys out, get a better sense of the story and the lore behind the story, because it's very complex, it's harder to read, all the names are in Elvish, so they don't make sense until you know the language, which nobody is under any obligation to learn. I just have a lot of experience with it, because I've been on and off doing Elvish stuff for 20 years now. Just more on than off lately. So, illustrations by Ted Nasmith. All rights to the Silmarillion belong to the Tolkien estate. I'm just using this in fair use to give you guys information and have some fun. So, hopefully you enjoy that. Let's get back to the main screen really quickly. Alrighty. So, any questions over what we covered today? Or did I go I feel like I went pretty in detail with you guys. Mikey, thanks for the comment. Sounds grim, but I think the grief aspect come from his own experiences and war. Absolutely. Absolutely. Tolkien fought in World War I. Sadly, the death of Beleg and the description of his face during death, maybe he went through that. He probably did. You're probably right on the money there. I would not doubt that at all. I think that's a very fair statement. That, you know, Tolkien, in his own way, despite this being a high fantasy world, he wrote what he knew. And he knew the struggle of trying to find hope and beauty in and after a time of war. And the camaraderie of, you know, being with your fellows in arms, right? These friendships that are really, really deep and abiding. That you would do anything for these people. Truly do anything for these people. And then having to deal with the loss of them. And this is, you know, a case of friendly fire, basically. And how that would weigh on a person, knowing that you're the one who killed that person. By accident, yes, you know, and you love them, and you never would have wanted that for them. But your hand pulled the trigger, proverbially. That's gotta be rough. That's like you hear stories on the news every so often of people in the military dying in training. Like some freak accident with equipment off the coast of California or something recently, like drowned 8 people. Like 8 people that died in training. And, you know, those families don't get any sort of closure. It's like, they would wish that their kids who were going into the military would at least die in combat, right? Like, they wouldn't die for some stupid reason of, you know, a equipment malfunction. In this case, it was an amphibious vehicle. So it was a vehicle that went from land to water. Something went wrong, and everybody's in heavy armor. And so a lot of the people on that vehicle died. So you get these cases where people don't get any closure, where terrible things happen, and it's not that they were in battle. So in some ways, it's even harder to deal with, because it was a mistake, and there's no one you can really blame. You can get into the, you know, why did this mistake happen, and try and follow that to its various conclusions. But in some ways, it's more sad, and it's like that's not what the kids signed up for, right? They signed up to fight and defend and serve, right? If they were going to die, they thought it would be, you know, in combat, not in training. So it's stuff like that, and, you know, the people who were in charge of that, and the guilt that they must have over losing these lives that they are in charge of. War is rough. It is a horror. It's just horror. That's absolutely accurate. And it's happening so many places around the world right now. It's not just Ukraine. Like, Ukraine is bad, don't get me wrong. But we are far more in the United States, we are invested in Ukraine because we have interests there. Whereas, you know, war is still going on in Afghanistan, and people aren't really thinking about that too much right now. And, you know, we still have conflicts in several different countries in Africa. We just like to ignore that. It's not good. It's not good at all. But yeah, lots of people tied up in war, and it is just a horror. It's a horror, and it's all for what? It's all just a power struggle, and it doesn't serve any major purpose, any positive change. It's just people killing other people. It's a bummer. But yeah, I've been in a bit of a state the last week or so. Not only have I been like low key constant depressed, and I had a couple days of, you know, a spike of really bad, could barely get out of bed kind of depression, but like adding onto that mental state that I've been watching Game of Thrones doesn't really help. It's making me really cynical. But again, I've been watching that show with I think everyone's gonna die. Like, I just sort of assume that it's going to be everyone's time soon. And so I'm not super shocked by the things that are going on in Game of Thrones. But it's interesting. People have told me that I would love Game of Thrones, and I don't. I'm meh on it. I can appreciate the filmmaking details. Like, I very much enjoy and appreciate that sort of thing. Blame Feanor. Feanor is at fault for everything. Feanor is the perfect scapegoat. Blame Feanor. Blame Feanor. No, I'm not making that parody. It's not going to happen. I say that and then I tend to do it. But no, I'm not going to do a Blame Feanor thing. Even though it's pretty accurate. I'm not familiar enough with the bass song. Versus the Family Madrigal, which I have done a Family Feanor parody to. That's already written and recorded. I'm just struggling getting the video done properly because TikTok's a pain in my ass. But yeah, so people keep telling me, oh, you'll love Game of Thrones. You should read the books. You should watch the Game of Thrones series. And tell me what you think. And I'm just like, it's not terrible. I don't actually like the vast majority of the characters. I can appreciate the complexity. The complexity and motivations and the imperfection of so many characters. I mean, that's where all the plot comes from, is the imperfection of these characters and their motivations. But I don't find it super engaging. I don't find it super engaging. And there's only so much schadenfreude I can gain. There's only so much pleasure I can get from the demise of characters I don't like, right? Like, I was actually really upset and disappointed in the manner in which Joffrey died. When Joffrey was unalived, I felt let down. I was just like, that was so anticlimactic. Like, I wanted there to be some sort of spectacle to his death, but there wasn't. And you know, that's fine. That's the way it was written, what have you. But it's like, you have these big, gruesome moments, but they don't tend to kill the people that you're kind of rooting to get killed. It's just a terrible, terrible thing to say. Again, I've been in a really cynical, dark headspace, so... Life's been rough, but thank you. Like, my life doesn't suck. I at least have enough perspective to appreciate what I do have. So, you know, it's not Oppression Olympics. I'm not trying to, you know, hand wave what I feel and just be like, well, other people have it so much worse. Because yeah, other people do have it a hell of a lot worse than I do. I'm sitting here in front of like a whole streaming setup. I have internet. I have a place to live. Like, I'm obviously not doing too terribly for myself. But the struggle is still real. The struggle is still real sometimes. And there are some days that are better and some days that are worse. Joffrey's death makes it human. He died not a big death, but a small little dirty one. Yeah, basically. I was pleased in... I don't even remember his name, but Daenerys' brother. I was just like, oh, he ain't gonna last long, not with that attitude. And so him with the golden crown thing. The moment Drogo said that in Dothraki, I was just like, oh, I know exactly what's about to happen. Because again, I was looking for ways for people to always meet their demise. I'm paying attention to the details as I watch, which is kind of cool. I'll give it that much, that because I'm expecting everyone to die, I'm paying attention to the little details to see if I can anticipate it before it happens, and a lot of the time I do. Or if I don't anticipate it when it happens, I'm not at all surprised. Even if I didn't predict it, I wasn't surprised by it. Oh, man. But I'm not done yet. I think I'm on episode 6 of season 7. So I haven't looked at how many episodes there are in each season. I know there were 9 episodes in several of them, but then season 6 had 10 or 11 episodes? Question mark? I forget. But yeah, so we'll see. So I have a few more episodes. I know that the final season was truncated, so we'll see. We'll see what I think. I'm reserving full judgment until after I've seen the entire thing, but everyone that I've spoken to about Game of Thrones has said that the last couple seasons are crap, so I don't have super high expectations. I'll take it as it is. That's how I approach a lot of things. That's how I approach the Amazon TV series for Rings of Power. I don't have terribly high expectations. I really don't. It means that I'll be able to accept things as they are. I can praise things that I like, things that I appreciate, details that are included. I always appreciate that sort of stuff. But I absolutely reserve the right to judge it harshly. If things suck, I'm just gonna say that they suck. I'm not afraid to do that. I think a lot of people, when they see someone give a positive review, they just sort of assume that we've been bought off, which is rarely the case. Typically, it's just it says something about the individual rather than saying something about the show itself. I tend to latch on to the things that are positive first. So my live reaction when I am watching something for the first time, I will get really excited about the small things that I really like, rather than going in with such negativity that I'm hard to please, right? So that just tells you about my specific personality. I think Dawn is pretty similar. We don't tend to have high expectations, so when things do land with us, it hits us harder and more authentically. I feel like that's true for Dawn too. Because you see him and he's, watching the trailer for Rings of Power and crying, like it hit him. And that's very true to form for him. That he'll let things stir up the nostalgia and stir up the joy, without being immediately bogged down by things that are obviously wrong or negative, what have you. Because we both know certain things are super, super unlikely to be good. Just elements. I'm not talking about the show as a whole. It may do really well and it may fall on its ass. We'll see. But it's okay to be positive about some positive stuff and then be negative about negative stuff. It's okay to have complex, nuanced feelings regarding a piece of media. I'm all for that. No problem, Annie. No problem at all. No problem. You can always watch the replay if you really want to. Just skip ahead by like half an hour. Because the first half an hour we didn't do anything. Not a problem. But I'm probably going to call it quits. I'm going to the circus today to celebrate my birthday. Once again, if anybody really wants to, there is a link. I still need to add it over on TikTok, but I'll add it to my link tree. There is a link on my stream on YouTube/Twitch for Throne Gifts. I have put together, it's an anonymous gift list, so you can send me stuff and it notifies me who purchased what or what have you. But it keeps my personal information safe, so you guys can gift me things, and my location and data and everything is still safe. So if anyone wants to gift me something super small, like a bottle of nail polish, or an ASMR toy that's like $5, you can check out the link And all the information is there for you to gift me something if you feel so inclined. Don't feel obligated, though. If you'd like to support my channel and my content in general, you also have the option of joining my Patreon. So, thank you to my patrons. I have, I think, 12 of you now, which is super exciting. I'm going to be adding a little thing for my... I'm going to be adding a little scroll thing, if I can, for my live streams here that'll list everyone who's been supporting me on Patreon, because I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna be enjoying my birthday for the next like week and a half. Complex feels with that because my birthday was always tied up with Sandra's birthday because we shared the same birth month, so typically we were celebrating together the entire month. So it's complicated, but I am going to try to actually enjoy things. I did get a early birthday gift to self, something that I bought myself for my birthday. That arrived yesterday, and I did film a little video on it. That'll be up on TikTok later today. It's so pretty. I'm so happy with the purchase. But also, I will be setting up with my new mixer that I got, and I'm hoping in the next week or so I will have my new microphone, so I'll be able to put my mic on this mic stand here and actually start doing my ASMR stuff. But yeah, so I got my new mic on its way. I have a new mixer. We're gonna mess with some special effects and stuff, and yeah, I'm gonna have a lot of fun putting stuff together for that. So hopefully y'all will tune in for some ASMR streams. There will definitely be, you know, humming and elvish and maybe some calligraphy, because all that stuff makes scratchy and tingly noises. So if you like ASMR, definitely keep an eye on my channel. Feel free to subscribe over on YouTube. That will give you the best notification chance. If you want to listen to ASMR, that stuff is only going to be on YouTube and Twitch. Oh, thank you. Noveren ador en onadlin. I need to do some more videos translating some stuff into Elvish for you guys. I need to do more of that. I've done a lot of translations lately, and that includes my big translation for Cammy Cat, which should be coming out sometime in the next month or so. I have no guarantee of when that's going live. But you will get early access if you're a patron. So if you want to support me on Patreon, you will get early access when that song and video goes live. And I will do background videos of how I translated things and stuff like that. I might do a live stream even. Happy birthday to you. Thank you so much. But I will see you guys next week. We will definitely set aside a good chunk of time so that we can get through the rest of chapter 22. Chapter 21, the Turin Turambar chapter. The tale of Turin is super sad, and it's about to get worse, but it's a fantastic story. So we will get through that, and there will be many, many, many illustrations to come. There are so many more illustrations in this chapter. It is bonkers. But have an awesome day. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Okay. Like, do I have any sound effects I can use? I guess I do. I have one. So goodbye.
Hello and goodbye.
Love you guys. Have a good day. I'll see you next weekend. Bye.